Mr. Charles Booker, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to chat with me today in these last few critical days of the campaign. It certainly means a lot.
Of course.
So, based on the most recent polling, you are the highest polling candidate in a crowded field. What is the contrast that you see in yourself versus your opponents?
Well, I think what we're seeing is a culmination of a lot of hard work, a lot of organizing. We have been telling the story of what is possible when regular people stand together from the hood to the holler. And not only am I speaking to the challenges Kentuckians facing, but I'm offering a vision of real solutions. And we're all frustrated. We're all sick and tired. And it's one thing to be upset, angry with what's happening in Washington, but what's going to change for us? And so not only am I calling out the Trump administration and certainly Mitch McConnell and Andy Barr and all of those sellout folks, but I'm lifting up a vision for working people. And that's inspiring a lot of folks. And that's why we're building support with organized labor, grassroots organizations. A lot of hardworking Kentuckians are standing with us, and I'm inspired. I'm proud.
So you have given Kentucky voters the chance to send you to the Senate before, and you lost that round. What's different this time?
You know, the biggest thing that's different is everything around us. I mean, this is the twilight zone. Down is up. We're seeing a federal government that is selling us out in our faces. Trump said he was going to drain the swamp. He was going to end endless war and make life more affordable. He's lied on all of it. He is the swamp. And we're seeing the price of gas rising, the price of fertilizer rising with these tariffs and this war. And everyone understands that something different has to be done. We can't just tinker around the edges. We can't just try to go back to a time before this mess, because we were hurting before Donald Trump. And what I see is that there's been a demand for the type of leadership that I've been lifting up for years. I've talked about Medicare for all for years. We've marched in the streets for justice and healing. I've stood on the picket line with our labor family. And now that type of leadership is needed more than ever. And that's why so much support is falling behind my campaign.
Tell me a bit about what you've been doing since your last run in 22.
So a couple of things. One of the greatest privileges for me was just growing as a father. My youngest daughter, Justice, came in right on the heels of that campaign run. And so seeing her going to preschool and to grow as a young, good troublemaker has been inspiring. But professionally, I've been working with Governor Beshear. I was in part of his administration. I was the director of faith-based and community initiatives for the last few years. So I was a part of his leadership team, working with the cabinet leadership and all of our agency heads across the state to make sure that every program, every budgetary decision centers working people, that we partner with our grassroots organizations in our faith-based community. I was a lead for the anti-Semitism task force, helping to be a liaison for that task force and lifting up the call to address anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, any faith-based discrimination. It's been really important work, and it's reflected the power of community, even being behind the scenes. And so taking this step to run for U.S. Senate again was not on my bingo card, but I'm so honored, and I'm glad that I didn't run from my calling. I'm stepping in and being obedient to what God put on my heart.
Do you believe Kentucky is a purple state?
You know, the color question is always an interesting one for me. I will tell you that when folks say Kentucky is a red state, that is way too dismissive. They're not listening to the people. Kentucky is a marginalized state. It's been an abandoned state. It's been a disenfranchised state. It's been a forgotten state, certainly by Mitch McConnell. And when you talk to folks, hardcore Republicans, lifelong Democrats, independents, one thing is true. They know we're all getting screwed. And the idea that we can flip this Senate race isn't about party. It's about humanity. Who's going to stand up for us? Because a lot of folks who voted for Trump voted for Bernie Sanders. We have Andy Beshear and Rand Paul. What I know is if you can stand up to the establishment, if you can stand up for working people, you'll find folks ready to support you. And sure, we'll change whatever color needs to be changed, whether it's to purple, it will be to bluegrass, because it's time Kentuckians are centered.
How closely would you say your policies align with Governor Andy Beshear?
You know, one of his core policies, or his core values rather, is treating people with decency, with kindness, showing up, coming to the table over and over again, coming out of the corner and saying that this is about Team Kentucky. It's not about Democrats or Republicans. It's not about red or blue. It's about us as family. That's been my life's work as well, because I believe we are family. We have so much more in common than anything that could ever divide us. And that foundation gives us the room to work together even when we don't agree on everything. I support policies that speak to humanity, and I know he's committed to that too. But you know, a lot of folks have called me radical. They've called me progressive. They've called me the Mamdani of Kentucky. A lot of different things. And quite honestly, call me whatever you want. I want to end generational poverty, and I believe together we can do it. I want everyone in Kentucky to live a good life. I know the governor feels the same way. And I want to make sure that democracy works for the people, that the government we pay for works for us. That's my commitment.
Well, as we talked about there in the purple state question, there's a lot of variety of political thought here in Kentucky. Beshear couldn't have won without appealing to a Republican. So what is it about your campaign and some of the specific policies that you are proposing that you think would be appealing to those voters to bring them into your camp in the general? Yeah,
well, the power of Hood to the Holler as a rallying cry is about expanding the base. There are a lot of Kentuckians who don't vote. A lot of people who feel like, what's the point? It's so much mess in politics. I'm gonna just focus on surviving. We don't talk to them. You go in the heart of Appalachia, you go out in far west Kentucky, you go in the hood and west end of Louisville, you'll find a lot of folks who are survivors, they're believers, they put faith into action, but they're not engaged in the democratic process because they feel it's a waste of time. We're mobilizing those folks, inspiring young people to get involved, people who have never voted before. So we're building a new map, and the data shows it. Not only are we leading in every poll in the Democratic field, but we're neck and neck with the Republicans running. But even in 22, when I ran, and although we didn't win at the ballot box, we shifted a lot of counties. We've built some real infrastructure, and that's why we're going to win.
Do you believe that Governor Beshear should endorse in this race?
Well, I believe that anyone who is standing up for humanity should endorse in this race. Right now, this is our time to win. But I also know that we're building something that is centered by working people, and to get the endorsement of working people is really where it's all at. Seeing organized labor behind me, Kentuckians for the Commonwealth. I was just talking to a gentleman at the last event before this, a lifelong Republican, who grabbed my arm and said, Charles, I've never voted for a Democrat, but I'm voting for you in November. You get there, I'm voting for you. I know we're doing something that's bigger than party, and everyone should get on board with this, because it's not just about winning a race, it's about saving our pursuit of democracy.
So some of the policies that you've laid out as part of your platform: Medicaid for all, universal income, free public university tuition. You've been critical against those who call those ideas unrealistic. Mm-hmm. Can you specifically explain how you would achieve them if elected? Yeah,
well, we will achieve the type of change we need in the way we always have. And Dr. King said the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice, and it does that because we are the arc benders. We're already paying for Medicare for all. We're already paying for universal basic income. We're just not prioritizing it. We're giving tax breaks to people like Elon Musk, making sure that Jeff Bezos can buy the next yacht, and then telling regular people that we can't have SNAP benefits, that we can't have child care because we have to fund endless war. We just need the leadership to not sell us out to corporate greed. That's why I'm not taking money from corporate PACs. That's why I'm not taking money from APAC. We can get the change we need right now. We just need leaders who will not make excuses and will have the courage to fight for working people.
Do you see it as a challenge to convince voters of the viability of those policies, and they not just simply write them off? And what is it about, specifically Medicaid for all, that you would, suggest is more viable versus the public option being proposed by one of your opponents?
Yeah, so the policy of Medicare for all is actually widely supported. So this isn't really an issue about convincing the voters. It's really been about convincing our political leaders to listen to the people. We see a lot of data that shows the policies that I lift up are widely popular. Now, people don't always use the buzzwords, but I'll tell you, the majority of Kentuckians agree that no one should have to ration their insulin to feed their children in the United States of America. And I'm leaning into that story. And what I know is, by using the power of storytelling, the power of coalition building, and lifting up the truth of Kentuckians, lifting up their voices, we have a coalition that's ready for a progressive future, call it that. To me, it's a future where Kentucky isn't the poorest, sickest state, one of the poorest and sickest states in the country.
Do you see it as a challenge, going back to the original question, to convince voters of the viability of some of those policies?
No, and that was my point, that Kentuckians know that these policies are viable. It's just been the pundits, it's been the politicians, it's been corporate interests that don't want that to be true, because they're making money off of us being sick. They're making money off of folks being paid low wages. They're making money off of us fighting amongst ourselves and being concerned about who's using what bathroom while we're all getting screwed over. So this is really about lifting up the voices of the people. And when you listen to the people, you will hear this message. This is not my platform, this is our platform, and it is why we're going to win.
Democrats have struggled to gain voter trust on the economy. Since 2010, Republicans have polled higher on the handling of the economy, with Democrats only recently gaining an edge in an April Fox News poll, 52-48. How do you win more of those voters back?
You know, I think the reality is setting in that when Trump said he was going to drain the swamp, when he was going to take on big money greed, they see that he was lying. And what I am preaching, what I am crying out, and what I am speaking for is the fact that taking care of working people is sustainable, is a sustainable economic decision. It's good for our economy to do right by working people. And the data shows it. We know that by investing in small businesses and make sure dollars can circulate in our communities, it's better for our communities. We know that if we raise wages, that people can be healthier, that if folks can have food on the table, they can be more productive in the workforce. We know these things. We just need leaders with the courage to lift it up. And so this campaign is a testament to a lot of years of coalition building, a lot of years of collective action. We have been telling this story. We've been building this, and now we're going to cash in. And yes, we'll win a Senate seat, but we're going to do so much more than that. We're going to go to Washington and deliver.
Do you see any threats that could potentially send more of those voters back to trusting Republicans with the economy?
If they turn on the news for more than 2 minutes, no. Donald Trump and his accomplices are tanking our economy. They are sending us into endless war. They are getting rich off of drones, manipulating the market while we lose our loved ones who are sacrificing for this country. They, being the people of Kentucky, see these prices rising. They're seeing the cost at the gas pump. They know that Donald Trump is actively hurting us. He hasn't completed his promise. And they're tired of it. They're tired of the political games. They're tired of Elon Musk. They're tired of the greed. They're tired of big government screwing us over. And no, I don't have to sell that. They see it. Again, I'm just having the courage to call it out and to lift up a vision of how we actually deliver for Kentucky. And I'm proud to do it.
You've said that Chuck Schumer, the minority leader in the Senate, needs to go. Yeah. Who should replace him?
You know, I believe that we need new leadership. I know that we have seen a status quo that has ignored working people, that has ignored our challenges, that has written off places like Kentucky. And Chuck Schumer, even in 2020, when I ran then, it was a bit of a rematch now. They put nearly $100 million behind a candidate in Amy McGrath that's disconnected from the people. This was a big money top-down operation that did not lift up Kentuckians. And people are tired of that. And he's still reflecting that disconnect, and yes, it's time to go. Now, I do think that there are some other voices that have risen to the surface to be considered. Chris Van Hollen is someone I've heard. I'd want to make a very sound decision on who should come behind it, because I'd want to talk to them about, are they committed to working people? Are they committed to ending generational poverty? Are they committed to standing up against big money greed? And then I'll make that vote based on that. Leader Schumer has shown that he wouldn't do that, and he does need to go.
So you spoke a little bit there about, sort of butting heads with Schumer and what I guess you could call a Democratic establishment. Mm-hmm. How does being in that position position you to achieve some of these campaign promises we've been discussing?
Well, when I was in the state legislature, I was able to pass legislation with hardcore Trump supporters. One thing I know is when you engage as family, it's not about agreeing on everything. It's about leaning into common bonds and finding solutions. So I stand on what I stand on, but I'm at the table to find ways to work with you. And I'm gonna keep showing up because I care about Kentucky that much. So if anyone in elected office cares about working people, they're gonna find a partner in me. And I think that type of leadership that can see us all as family and stay true to integrity, but also find ways to build, is how we can get things done. I will call out what needs to be called out, but I'm always looking for ways to call in the coalitions that are needed to deliver for Kentucky.
So you're not worried about being an outsider?
No, I mean, I wear that with pride. But, this isn't about being anti-establishment. There's nothing establishment about me. This is about having the courage to show up, to build relationships. And again, understanding that we don't have to agree on everything. And I'll tell you, after knocking on doors in Appalachia, knocking on doors in West Kentucky with Confederate flags in the yard and Trump signs in the yards, and having conversations about how we lower utility costs, how we lower groceries, and how we make life more affordable, you will find people ready to work with you if you treat them like they matter, if you show up earnestly, and no BS, no games, and just show them respect. And that's what my granddad taught me, and that's how I lead.
Republicans would universally agree that Donald Trump is the leader of the Republican Party right now. Who is the leader of the Democratic Party?
You know, I don't know what the Republican Party is now. So to even say Donald Trump is leading it, he has completely transformed what is the Republican Party. When he ran for president, the Republicans laughed at him. He has completely transformed whatever that is now. And so I think the conversation about where the Democratic Party goes, there's a similar reckoning that's happening. The Democratic Party has been the party to lift up values of human rights, values of working people, but in a lot of cases hasn't delivered in the ways that would really transform life for Kentuckians. And I think this campaign is not only a reckoning of where we're going as a party, but just as Kentuckians, but it's also the chance for us to tell a new story. And I hope that the Democratic Party will see campaigns like this as the opportunity to listen to the people and to invest and to uphold the values that have been proclaimed by this party. I don't do this because I'm a Democrat. I do it because I'm a Kentuckian. I'm a father of 3 girls, and I'm sick and tired of us being screwed over and hurt. And I know we can have better from the government we pay for.
If elected, do you believe that a third impeachment trial of President Trump would be a valuable use of Congress's time and resources?
Yes. It isn't about whether it's expedient. It's about what's necessary. I believe democracy is worth defending. I believe the Constitution is worth protecting. And I believe that anyone that is trampling on the Constitution to enrich themselves while in the office of the president should be held accountable. Donald Trump needs to be impeached, removed, and arrested. And that should not even be a partisan statement now. And that shouldn't even be where we stop. Because once that mess is addressed, we got to get to the job of taking care of working people. We got a lot of work to do. People across this country are hurting, are suffering. There's been a lot of damage on the global stage, and we have a lot of work to do to repair. And that's why this election is so important. We cannot sit this out.
Do you believe the U.S. will still be involved in a war with Iran by the time November gets here?
You know, I sure hope not. This is something that the American people did not want. There was no authority granted to lead us into another war. Donald Trump, with every tweet, is saying that it's over. Now he's going to destroy civilization. They've destroyed their nuclear capability. Now they're about to build a nuclear weapon. We don't know what's coming out of this administration, but we know we need accountability, and we need a Senate that will make that happen. I do hope that the Congress steps up to its arm of being a check and balance on the White House, on the executive branch. But should they not, we're going to take this Senate seat back and flip the U.S. Senate and make sure that it happens.
How much involvement do you believe that Israel had in getting the U.S. involved in that conflict?
You know, I think it's pretty clear that there has been very consistent coordination with Netanyahu and Trump on actions abroad. The question of how involved, it's hard to really capture the magnitude, but what I'll tell you is what we know is that bombing a school of young girls in Iran is wrong. What we know is sending our loved ones into a conflict that was not authorized, that American citizens did not want, that is killing innocent people is wrong. And we know that endless wars have to stop. That's what we know. That's factual. And we need a senator that will stand up against the continued military-industrial complex, this continued pursuit of interventionism and this pursuit of endless war to profit people like Mitch McConnell. It has to stop. And I'm proud to be endorsed by Peace Action, advocacy groups around the country that are standing up for peace and an end to war. And Israel's role in it is clear, and it's why I've said we should not fund genocide. We should not be funding endless war. We need to stand up even to our own allies to make sure that democratic values are being upheld, that humanity is being honored, and I'm committed to doing that.
So it's often said that Kentucky punches above its weight in D.C. Senator McConnell has been credited with securing a lot of federal funding for a state of our size. How do you achieve that same level of influence?
Yeah, you know, I think Mitch McConnell gives a good playbook on how you can lead in a way that brings resources back home and how you can build political power. The problem is he forgot about Kentucky a long time ago. He used this to build power for himself. There has been a time where he would bring resources back to Kentucky, but he didn't do it to actually benefit the people. He's hoarded power for himself. So I see the opportunity, building coalitions, building relationships, working in communities across Kentucky that have been ignored. That's what Mitch McConnell did. I am doing that. I've been doing that, and I intend to do that as a senator, but to empower working people, not to make myself rich. Members of Congress should not be buying and trading stock while they're in office. They shouldn't be in office to get wealthy. They need to work for the people. That's their job. And so I know it's still possible, especially if we, as Kentuckians, demand it. That's why when I launched my campaign, I called out that if Washington won't listen to the people, we need a general strike. We need to use our power as people to fight for the change we want to see, and we need a government that will be accountable to us. And I am offering the chance to have a U.S. senator that will be accountable to us.
What is your position on term limits, and how long would you serve if elected?
We absolutely need term limits. I understand the arguments around having wisdom in office, and I believe in having wisdom in the legislature, but at the same time, we have swung, the pendulum has swung to such an extreme that we're seeing people in office. Mitch McConnell's been in office my entire life. He was elected when I was 2 weeks old. No one should be in these offices that long. We need term limits. I believe 2 terms. If you can't get the job done in 2 terms in the U.S. Senate, then you're not actually there to work for the people. And so I have taken the pledge in my previous runs. I pledge to it now. I believe we need term limits. We need term limits in the Supreme Court as well, because we're seeing what's happened to Mitch McConnell's Supreme Court, and the Senate has a job to do to unpack that as well.
Any particular length of time that you would support?
Well, I mentioned 2 terms. I believe that in the Senate, 2 terms, 12 years. That's plenty of time to lay critical foundation, to build relationships, to pass legislation, to build infrastructure, to lead on the national stage, and to set up the infrastructure so that more leadership can come. This is not about any one person, it's about us collectively. These seats don't belong to us, they belong to the people. And so we should not go there to build careers.
All right. So to bring our interview to a close, Mr. Booker, I'm going to ask one simple but straightforward question, which is, what is one nice thing you're willing to say about your Democratic primary opponents?
They are not as terrible as Andy Barr and Daniel Cameron. We have had multiple debates and forums, and everyone running on the Democratic side is speaking to humanity, speaking to how we help one another, speaking to how we can take care of Kentucky, and I'm proud of that. I know that I am in the strongest position because of the work I've done over the years on the ground in Kentucky and because my platform speaks directly to the people, but everyone that is on the Democratic ticket should be proud that we're telling a story of fighting for Kentucky, and I'm just proud to do my part in it.
All right. U.S. Senate candidate, Mr. Charles Booker, thank you so much for your time again, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother.